Now, let's have a look at Meghan Markle being weird and inauthentic.
Meghan Markle walked into Paris expecting thunder.
She's been mocked at Paris Fashion Week.
What she got instead was silence. A duchess at Fashion Week should cause chaos. But in Balenciaga's front row, you could hear whispers instead of applause. And those whispers carried something darker than bad reviews.
That was awkward. Let's have another look at it.
From the outside, it looked like her big comeback. Cameras clicking, lights bouncing off her black heels, the kind of shot every magazine editor wants. Yet, those who were inside told a different story.
She, of course, spent the weekend there showing plenty of behind-the-scenes content. Now, let's just take a look at the Duchess strutting for the cameras.
Stylists later recalled that when Meghan entered, the air went cold. No smiles, no hugs, one whispered. Just eyes watching her, judging. It wasn't the reception of an icon, it was the silence of suspicion. That contradiction set the tone. Because in Paris, silence says more than screams. What followed was more awkward than anyone expected. Paparazzi snapped their frames, but even they seemed bored. Editors who usually scramble for selfies kept their distance. One insider said the body language was unmistakable. Nobody wanted to be caught standing too close.
I mean, yeah, the children were posed with teddy bears dressed in bondage-style gear.
What?
It was predatory. And Meghan Markle is accepting an award as Humanitarian of the Year on Thursday for protecting children online. She shouldn't be promoting a brand accused of predatory behavior.
In an industry built on proximity, Meghan had become untouchable. Not because of scandal in the tabloids, but because of something more basic. Word spread backstage that even her presence was difficult. Not for her attitude, but for her aura, or rather, her smell. Several accounts claimed the same thing. One described it as cheap perfume layered over stress. Another whispered that the glam team looked exhausted, spraying everything they could. "You can fix foundation," someone joked, "but you can't fix that." Whether exaggeration or truth, the rumor spread fast. By the end of the night, people weren't whispering about Balenciaga's designs. They were whispering about Meghan. In Paris, scandal can be forgiven. Arrogance can even be celebrated. But bad hygiene, that is social exile. And if the smell rumor was brutal, the outfit detail was worse. Because in fashion, what you wear is a message. Insiders revealed her clothes weren't gifts, but borrowed samples. Tags attached, no tailoring, nothing custom. A quiet but cutting sign, she wasn't part of the circle. High-profile celebrities are showered with couture, free of charge, because brands want their aura. Meghan's aura didn't qualify. She had to return everything. One stylist whispered, "Balenciaga didn't crown her." They tolerated her. That backstage reality contrasted sharply with the image Meghan tried to project. Chin high, smiling like she owned the city. But insiders insisted Paris saw through it. The glamorous Duchess wasn't being dressed as an icon, she was being treated as a placeholder. And in the sharp-eyed world of fashion, that's the loudest rejection of all.
How are you protecting children when you are promoting a brand that was accused of inappropriate behavior towards them?
Now, look, it's not being received well, certainly not as well as maybe she would have hoped, with some people labeling it a Zoolander walk.
The contradiction couldn't be clearer. Meghan wanted a rebirth. Paris gave her a reality check. And this was only the beginning of the whispers that followed her from the runway to the streets. Because when she left the venue, another rumor surfaced. One tied not to perfume, but to a tunnel. And that story was even more haunting. When Meghan left the Balenciaga show, Paris expected her to disappear into the night. Instead, the story took a darker turn. Word began spreading that she had taken a drive through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the very same place where Princess Diana's life ended. At first, people called it coincidence. But as one fashion journalist put it, in this city, nothing is coincidence. Her own team quickly claimed she didn't know, that she was unaware of the location's history, that the drive was just a route back to her hotel. But to those who have followed Meghan for years, the denial rang hollow. Former friends had said she studied Diana's funeral repeatedly. Others remembered her obsession with royal biographies, every detail underlined. How could she not know? One commentator asked. This is a woman who knows her symbols. That tunnel is the most loaded symbol of all. Fans online picked up the thread immediately. TikTok edits showed Meghan's car passing through the tunnel alongside clips of Diana's final moments set to haunting music. On Twitter, hashtags trended, some calling her bold, others calling it manipulative. "It's one thing to admire Diana," a user posted. "It's another to cosplay her tragedy." The reaction wasn't just skepticism, it was outrage mixed with disbelief, the kind of viral cocktail that spreads faster than any PR campaign. For Paris, the tunnel story landed like a cultural earthquake. This city adored Diana. To many Parisians, the memory is still sacred, and the Pont de l'Alma is not a backdrop for symbolism. Local tabloids ran headlines questioning Meghan's motives, while international outlets cautiously speculated on whether the drive was staged.
She went round Paris in this car. She had her heels kicked up, and you can see that. A lot of people criticized her because she went near the tunnel where Diana was tragically killed. I'm not sure that was deliberate, but it's a lot of people criticized that.
Reports suggested the moment might have been intentional, one paper wrote. Careful not to accuse, but unwilling to dismiss. The ambiguity only fueled the fire. Behind the scenes, fashion insiders began whispering about the bigger picture. Why risk this kind of symbolism? Why tie yourself so closely to Diana's legacy, again and again? One editor told colleagues, "It's not branding, it's obsession." To them, Meghan's Paris trip wasn't just about fashion. It was about rewriting the Diana narrative, one staged moment at a time. And yet, the irony was brutal. Instead of winning admiration, the stunt reminded people of the comparison she could never live up to. Meanwhile, fans loyal to Diana saw it as sacrilege. Comment threads filled with sharp words. Diana was loved. Meghan is pretending others pointed to Harry, asking why he would tolerate such a performance. If Harry cries when he talks about that tunnel, how could she treat it like a photo op? One post read, amassing thousands of likes. By the end of Fashion Week, Meghan's Paris appearance was no longer about couture. It was about a car ride, a tunnel, and the ghost of a princess she could never replace. And with every whisper, every headline, the tension grew sharper, because the next revelation wasn't about rumor or speculation. It was about the hypocrisy hiding in plain sight, one that linked Meghan to the very media empire she once condemned. For years, Meghan Markle positioned herself as the victim of ruthless press. She claimed the media hunted her, that tabloids twisted her story, that history was repeating itself with Harry as the tragic witness. She warned the cameras would destroy her, the way they destroyed Diana. But Paris exposed a detail many had forgotten: the truth about who really cashed in on Diana's final moments.
Look, this is the same woman that tells us she's Diana 2.0. Shouldn't she be aware of something like this?
While British tabloids took the blame, insiders reminded audiences that the most chilling images of Diana's last hours were not sold by Fleet Street. They were bought, aired, and broadcast by an American network, CBS. Yes, the same CBS that Harry and Meghan later chose for their explosive primetime interview. Commentators pointed out the contradiction. How do you condemn the press for exploiting tragedy? One media analyst asked, and then give exclusives to the very network that profited from it? Reports suggested even Harry's own circle questioned the choice at the time. Some friends allegedly warned him that sitting down with CBS was dangerous, a reminder of old wounds. But Meghan insisted, and when Oprah's cameras rolled, the network that once turned Diana's death into ratings gold now turned Harry and Meghan's grievances into global spectacle. For critics, it wasn't just irony, it was hypocrisy carved into prime time. Fans online didn't miss it either. Threads on Reddit pulled receipts, posting CBS headlines from the 1990s side by side with Meghan's Oprah clips. One viral comment read, "She blames tabloids for Diana's suffering, but works with the company that showed her last breaths." How do you explain that? The comparison wasn't a niche argument. It spread across platforms, fueling the narrative that Meghan's brand of victimhood was carefully curated, not consistent. Industry insiders, too, began to notice the cracks. One Hollywood publicist told Variety, "Authenticity sells. Hypocrisy kills." The CBS partnership, in their view, was the moment Meghan's credibility began to slip. And in Paris, when whispers about Diana resurfaced, that credibility shattered further.
Well, I think you've got to get the princess pouch, don't you? You've got to work on that. Brilliant Ben Stiller movie and those glorious moments as they strut their stuff, all sorts of things. And people come with their own prejudices about the megalomania, as I call it each time.
Suddenly, the audience wasn't just questioning her fashion choices or her Paris itinerary, they were questioning her integrity. To make matters worse, reports suggested that Meghan's speeches and humanitarian branding were often ghostwritten. Her projects recycled versions of ideas already in circulation. Staffers described her as demanding without direction, a leader without a clear vision. Combined with the CBS irony, Paris made it impossible to ignore the pattern. A duchess obsessed with image, but careless with truth. And Paris didn't just highlight that hypocrisy, it amplified it. Because when fashion houses choose who sits front row, they aren't picking based on popularity alone. They're picking based on cultural weight. And the weight Paris saw in Meghan wasn't glamour, it was contradiction. That revelation set the stage for the next chapter. Because if CBS represented hypocrisy, then the fashion world's cold shoulder represented something even more damaging: rejection from the very industry Meghan hoped would crown her anew. By the third day of Paris Fashion Week, the Meghan Markle buzz had shifted. It wasn't about her outfit anymore. It wasn't even about the tunnel. It was about what insiders called the cold shoulder designers, who usually compete for celebrity attention, seemed to go out of their way to avoid her. One photographer claimed, "I've never seen a duchess stand alone for so long in a lobby." The images went viral. Meghan, chin raised, surrounded by flashing cameras but no peers at her side. Fans online pounced. Twitter feeds filled with side-by-sides, Meghan sitting in borrowed Balenciaga next to Rihanna draped in couture, Zendaya hugged by Valentino, even Kim Kardashian enveloped by Balenciaga's creative team. The captions were brutal. One read, "One of these women was invited," the other borrowed the invite memes spread with hashtags like #empty chair energy and #borrowed couture. Paris, the city of light, had turned Meghan into the internet's shadow.
Also, this is the same town that her mother-in-law passed away in. Prince Harry says it was due to paparazzi, and Meghan's literally chasing these flashbulbs throughout the city. And then, she's 1 mile away in that video from where Princess Diana, had her last breath, lost her light.
Industry commentators didn't hold back either. Fashion blogs, usually diplomatic about celebrities, published subtle but sharp critiques. A French editor wrote, "Paris does not reward pretense. Clothes must fit the spirit, not just the body." Another suggested her look was assembled, not bestowed, a coded way of saying she wasn't chosen by the house. These weren't throwaway lines. In fashion language, they were daggers, because in this industry, being seen as desperate is worse than being forgotten. Meanwhile, the Diana Tunnel whispers made the rejection sting even harder. Fans began posting old clips of Harry speaking about his trauma, spliced with Meghan's Paris appearance. "He cries, she poses," one TikTok caption said, pulling millions of views in less than 24 hours. Commentators speculated that Paris didn't just reject Meghan's style, it rejected her symbolism. One culture critic noted, "Diana was authenticity in motion. Meghan is simulation in still frames." Paris saw the difference. The backlash didn't stop in the fashion houses. Reports suggested other celebrities were quietly warned to keep distance. One stylist claimed they overheard a PR manager say, "Being seen too close is a risk right now." For someone who built her brand on connections, that kind of distancing was catastrophic. In an industry where alliances matter, Meghan wasn't building bridges. She was burning them. And yet, the irony cut deepest online. Fans who once defended her against the monarchy now questioned if the monarchy had been right. "Maybe the firm saw something we didn't," one post read, garnering tens of thousands of likes. That shift, from sympathy to skepticism, marked the real turning point. Meghan wasn't just losing Paris, she was losing the narrative. The climax of Fashion Week wasn't Balenciaga's runway. It was the collective realization that Meghan's image, once untouchable, was crumbling in real time. And when Paris strips away glamour, the world listens. But what came next was even harsher. The fallout that would follow Meghan far beyond France. When the lights of Paris dimmed and the cameras were packed away, Meghan Markle was left with the one thing she didn't come for: silence. Not applause, not admiration, not even outrage. Just the quiet rejection of an industry that had already moved on. And in fashion, silence is fatal. Reports suggested that after the show, her team scrambled to line up new brand meetings, but doors that once opened for her now stayed shut. One insider told Page 6, "Nobody wants to be the one to take that risk. Not after Paris." That wasn't about one outfit or one tunnel drive. It was about credibility. Fashion houses thrive on cultural capital, and Meghan's Paris trip had drained hers. Fans noticed the absence too. Comment sections, once filled with heart emojis, now leaned sarcastic. On Instagram, a viral post showed her in borrowed couture with the caption, "Return by Monday." On TikTok, the meme hashtag Paris Exposed trended for 3 days straight. For a woman who built her public image on global admiration, the new wave of ridicule marked a painful pivot. She came for validation, one fan wrote, and left with humiliation. Even in Hollywood, whispers began circulating. Commentators speculated that if major fashion houses weren't backing her, studios and streaming giants might think twice, too. A media analyst told The Wrap, "If you can't command loyalty in fashion, you risk looking like a liability in film and TV." That prediction hit hard, especially after reports that Spotify had cooled off, Netflix had scaled back, and no new global deals were in sight. And then came the cultural echo. Paris has a history of crowning icons. Think Diana at the Ritz, Rihanna at Dior, Audrey Hepburn on the Seine. But it also has a history of exposing pretenders. As one French columnist bluntly put it, Paris forgives scandal, but it never forgives imitation. That line summed up the entire week. Meghan hadn't reinvented herself. She had reminded the world of what she wasn't. For Harry, the fallout was personal. Photos of him looking subdued in California surfaced just days later, sparking speculation that Paris had shaken the couple privately. Fans asked whether he realized the symbolism of that tunnel drive or whether he was forced to defend it yet again. Either way, the cracks in the narrative were now visible to everyone. The Duchess, who once seemed untouchable, was standing in the glare, stripped of mystique. And that's the irony Paris left behind. Meghan came to be remembered for her return to glamour. Instead, she'll be remembered for the whispers, the memes, and the silence that followed. Paris gave her attention, but not the kind she wanted. And once Paris turns, the world takes notice. If Paris can expose Meghan Markle with one borrowed outfit and one fateful drive, imagine what Hollywood will do when the spotlight shifts back. Subscribe now, hit that like button, and stay tuned, because the next act in this story may be even louder than the silence in Paris.